about these four Oklahoma death row inmates that recently lost an appeal at the 10th Circuit Court to have their death sentences overturned, or at least their executions stayed. These four men were scheduled to have their executions in the next, I think, 3 months. The most notable in the execution that was first up was Julius Jones, and now I'll talk about him towards the end of this a little bit more. But we also have Wade Lay, Donald Grant, and Gilbert Pastelli. And so the four men really seem to base their case around two things going on. One, Oklahoma has a very problematic history with lethal injection executions, which is the way that these four men are sentenced to die. In 2014, there was one extremely botched execution where I think the inmate like riled around on the bed and convulsed for a solid 45 minutes before actually dying. And then there were also three other botched executions. And so this is an issue. It's not quick and clean like people think it is. The person goes, lays there, and then they fall asleep over the course of 10 minutes and their heart stops beating. Very simple and a procedure, everything like that. And they also don't realize that there is a money interest here. These drugs are very expensive. This whole process is very expensive, and there are people who profit off of it, as disgusting as it is. And so I'm not saying that all these four men are guilty, are innocent, excuse me, and they, should be let out of prison. Even in the case of Julius Jones, who I think people are very familiar with because of his story's promotion by Kim Kardashian, that there are real questions about his guilt. But even if there wasn't, even if he wasn't like hotly contesting it or anything like that, there's a real problem with the state having the ability, a legal procedure it could go through to order somebody's execution. Even if in the current way it's sentenced, it's on its way out in some states, even if it's typically only used for murder. And hell, even if you really believe that it should only be used in cases where we absolutely know the person murdered them, the state is always going to stretch that, and they're always going to lie. I'll talk a little bit later on the show of this guy Kevin Strickland, who spent 43 years in jail for a crime he didn't commit. Now he's getting out. Well, thankfully he wasn't sentenced to death 30 something years ago, and now we're talking about exonerating a dead body or something like that, which is so much more shameful. Not that he's going to have a great life now. He's well past the prime where he gets to do all the great things that he would like to do, but at least he can go visit his mom's grave as a free man, and I think he wants to go see the ocean or something like that. So anyways, on this case in particular, there is another argument that the inmates are making that's more technical but kind of interesting, where Oklahoma in 2011, I believe, changed their law, and that would be after these men were sentenced, and it changed the way that the lethal injections were carried out, or at least the specificity in the law of it, where I think before it actually said the drug to be used, where it changed it to just by a lethal injection. And they were kind of arguing a post facto law issue here, where after they were sentenced, they changed the law, and now they're being sentenced to die in another way, and the court said, nah, we don't buy that. So this whole thing is a mess, and I think that the solution will obviously be to get rid of the death penalty, but the state likes to kill and really doesn't, at least largely doesn't want to give up that right. So anyway, I just want to mention Julius Jones, who his execution, I believe, was commuted, and he now actually has a life sentence by Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt. Although, there is some real cruelty, right? If there wasn't new information that came out 2 days before his execution that caused the governor to decide to stay it, or to commute his sentence, but rather it was just the amount of political pressure that's built up. And so the trauma that you're putting somebody through by pending their own death, and essentially nobody a lot of these things go right up till the last minute, and it's only political pressure at the end. And it's just such a cruel and disgusting process. And so, and then the other issue I want to mention in Julius Jones's case in particular is that justice has not been done for him. If, we take him off of death row and then just stick him back in jail and then don't give him an attempt to have another child to bring up the, I think, very fair concerns in his case, that, he may not be guilty, then you're just essentially, using him as a human meat bait storage. So, because politically, that's the most convenient thing to do with him. And, that's just morally repulsive and disgusting.